temperature controls, humidity controls, and pressure controls in every single room. So I could be literally on stage talking to you guys, and the signal comes to my alarm, says, hey, room 6 is having a challenge, and then I hit it, and then they can show me everything that's going on with this room. Everything. And I could be in Colombia, I could be in Canada. Wow. I know exactly what's happening every single place in this entire operation. We set that by design, and we were able to adjust it, every little piece of it adjusted. So I can actually adjust the temperature of this room from here. It goes right through there. So that was really important for us to be able to do. So what you're seeing right now, this is what's called, we're going to take you through the steps of making a soft gel first and then a capsule. So this is soft gel. So this is gelatin. See down here, gelatin, we get these small little pellets. We actually have a vegetarian option as well, by the way, because we know that's where we're going. But unfortunately, the vegetarian hasn't been stable long term, and it has problems with leakages and those types of things. And so they're trying to perfect it, but it's really tough to get a good vegan version. But we do a couple of different versions for vegan, but we can't do it all. Plus, there's some supply challenges. We do it with tapioca. That's how we're existing upstairs. So what happens, this process is basically, this comes in, we weigh out the beef gelatin, we put it up into this individual 600-liter tank that actually heats it up. We put glycerin water, combine it, and then it drops down into a transfer tank that's about 300 liters. And that 300-liter tank is now kind of hot, kind of like very, very viscous. It just, you can kind of push through it and so forth. It's totally different. It's like very thick molasses, if you will. And but it's hot. It's ready to go. And they stay in these jacketed kettles where they go rolling around, and they get put over here to be gelled, make the actual soft gel. So that's what this is right here. So everybody right now, what they're talking about is they're making sure they've got the proper weights for the beef gelatin, the loading of the gelatin up into the tanks, and then as soon as it's ready to go, it mixes and then drops down. Okay, so that's step one. We've made the outside of the capsule.
Okay. Can I ask one question? How rare is it for a manufacturing facility to have those hospital qualities you mentioned with the stainless steel walls and all that quality stuff that Eddie talks about?
Yeah, it's very uncommon.
It is uncommon.
Well, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars difference in terms of, because most people just want to get in, set it up, and kind of cook it and go. You know,
and I mean, I got goosebumps just you saying that, because that's what we put in our body every day, right?
Well, that's exactly what it is. So. I mean, well, again, I mean, my wife, my kids, you know, I would eat off that floor. The way that we treat this place, you've got to treat it the way you would want to treat it, and give it to your parents and to your kids and so forth. That's the way we treat it. The problem is some people are coming in to make a quick buck. Yeah. And that's not what we're here to do. We want to be here for the long haul. And so that's why even these floors, and they look kind of, they still look kind of bad to me, but they're BYU blue, but they're but the reality is that they were specifically designed with antimicrobial properties.
Nice.
So what happens, what that means is when microbes come onto the floor and so forth, they want to stick and they want to grab. And if you don't have an antimicrobial property, then it will kind of latch on. And then even though you push a mop over the top, you might just push it into the ground, you may not push it away. Well, it's so loose, they can't actually grip. And so it pushes away, so it pulls it off, and it's much better. It's little things like that. So the normal floor that you would see in a place like this, in one room, would cost you maybe $5,000. This costs $50,000.
Wow.
It's quite a bit more to do it this way, to do the laminar airflow.
Do it right.
To take the controls and the humidity and the temperature to make sure it's all signed off. Now, by the way, last thing I'll mention so you guys know, we trust everybody, but we verify. Okay? What I mean by that is, why do we have multiple people running this in the same? A lot of companies, they'll say that one person just does it, puts the weight down, and then signs off and says it's good. Well, this person's responsibility is to do it, and this person's to verify that they did it correctly. So there's a done by, check by system. That's how pharmaceutical companies do it. You've got to make sure you know that it is what it is. This isn't going to people's bodies. You've got to make sure it's right. Then, believe it or not, we have a third check, and it's quality. Quality comes in and audits these guys. And they have to stand back and they let quality come in, do their check, verify everything. So you have 3 final checks to make sure that it's exactly the right amount of ingredients, the right amount of gelatin, the right amount of processing, and so forth, and it's the right viscosity and thickness. So, and that happens every step of the way. Wow. So, before it gets to this place here, all the raw ingredients. So, all the raw ingredients will come in. So, a lot of people say to me, you know, how do you guys, get your testing and your validation and all that sort of thing? So, this is what we call the mixing room. So this is how we blend it. It's kind of a kitchen, if you will. So all the individual ingredients that go into, for instance, Youth or Meta or Optimum Omega, those types of things, they're all mixed right here. So there's the mixer, and then there's a color mixer here. You can actually mix in and adjust the colors that you need with natural colors. Again, Dan, back to your point on quality. This is really, really important for you guys to know. So when a raw material comes in, we have to test it analytically, and then we go through safety. We go through the entire 6S process to make sure it was processed properly, and then we do an identity check. That identity check is critical because it could be green and it's, oh, I'm sure it's this or that. It has to be the certain fingerprint, and it goes, you can see it. You can actually see it through an HPLC. You can actually see it through the FTIR. It'll say this is 99.9999% absolutely this. Anytime you get something that doesn't hit that, it looks the same, it smells the same, and it doesn't hit, it's dismissed and sent back to the other, the raw ingredient provider and ask what's going on and so forth, and we get to the details of that. It's important for two reasons. Number one is we have to make sure that what you guys are sharing with your friends and family is exactly what it's supposed to be. And number two is it's the right way to do business. So that's checked before it gets done. So think about this, 172 plus different checks before it ever gets to you guys. That's analytical testing, done by check by testing, and all the safety and microbial testing. So those raw materials are all tested before they ever come into here. This is what's called a staging setup. So they'll come in on Monday and they'll set this up. They had to set up the gel prep first, so we have gel prep ready. And then we have this raw material. So this will all be mixed up. And you see this little table right here, because sometimes we have to make micronutrients because you're doing micrograms of certain ingredients like selenium and that sort of thing. And you have macro nutrients like calcium and magnesium and those types of things. So those are big, and you mix them up there. And you have to titrate it and make sure that it gets fluid throughout the entire process to make sure it's perfect. And then they have to do a test there at that point, make sure it's blended homogenously, and then they go take it over to encapsulation, which we'll go to next. Any questions on this?
How many tests did you say?
172 minimum. 172 to 100, but it depends on the product. Like LifePak, for instance, is over 300.
Wow.
Because LifePak has so many ingredients.
Right.
So this is an example of a standard soft gel machine. The big difference on this, and again, Dan, I appreciate you bringing up that point about the differences of what we're doing here. So this has a servo-based system. In the past, this is a soft gel machine, and in the past they used gear-driven. Gear-driven, the difference is you're talking about hundredths versus tenths of precision. The precision is so much tighter, so that you get the right seal, the right pressure, and the right consistency. So, I'll give you some perspective, and I'll show you in the next room when it goes on. This is the basic setup of the machine. You make the soft gels here, it flows over to here, and it goes through this drying tank system that's all patented through here. This is the best technology currently available in the marketplace right now. There's nobody that makes it better. This comes out of, by the way, Canada.
Go Canada!
So this comes, we actually have a link in this system all the way back to our engineers in Canada. And if there's a problem, they can troubleshoot this machine from Canada.
Nice.
And make the adjustments that we have to make and so forth. They tell the information what's happening. They can see what's happening with the machine, why it's diagnostics and those sort of things. They can see whether dwell time is consistent or not. They can see everything about this machine if we let them. You know, they don't necessarily know what the product is or anything like that. They just know what's happening with the machine. So it's real easy, and that's why we have this little video conference that we can go into and go into this detail. The other thing that we have here is you'll see this little ring right here. The most important thing about a soft gel is making sure that you have consistency, because you're basically taking gelatin, you're squeezing it together, injecting it with liquid, or in some cases a paste, which is very difficult, and closing it and not getting anything in the seams, and it's all in microsecond. You'll see it over here on this next room, and it has to happen really, really fast. And so what happens sometimes is if you don't get it just right, then that seal pattern goes off, and then you have leakers, and you have inconsistency of product. That can happen. Now, gelatin will actually start to break down after 85 degrees, so if somebody puts it on the dash of the car and they're in Florida, they're in trouble. It's just the nature of the product. Okay? So, unless they're putting bad products in it to kind of stabilize it, which we don't do. So this is the actual encapsulation process. I want to come all the way over here. They have it hidden behind these trays. These are the drying trays that we put them onto. Separate them out. So what you're looking at is the very front of the machine
Looks like
All those
Optimal Omega.
tubes coming in, that's the material. That'd be like Optimal Omega going directly in there. Okay, that's been blended over here. Remember, we've done all the testing to make sure it's the correct material. It was mixed properly. It's at the right homogeneous flavors, and then it comes directly into here. It gets peristaltic pumped into here, and then goes into this what we call a dye system. This dye system is really important. These rollers right here, each one of them are about $12,000 just to have those, and so you have to make sure they're right and they're perfect. So what happens is you have the gelatin. Remember how we made the gels at the very beginning? That's running in the very back, and you see this web stuff coming over on the side, coming over these little shoulders and these little turntables? That's your gelatin. How did it get to rigid is because, you know, like Jell-O, you set it in the fridge, right? Same thing. This is a chilling drum that's right here. So what happens, you have this hot gelatin in this tank right here. It drops onto this, what we call chilling drum. It kind of basically freezes it for a second, hardens it up, and then, but still makes it loose enough that it can travel, and then makes the outside of the soft gel. Then it goes directly down into these dyes, and they come together, left and right side, and like I said, they seal, it injects in a microsecond the exact amount of 600 milligrams, 800 milligrams, 1200 milligrams, whatever the specific amount is, and then closes it. And then you see, it comes out, almost like little pieces. And that additional remaining material goes into the gel prep stage. And then it goes, these little soft gels go all the way over to the drying tunnels over there. So what those drying tunnels do is about anywhere from, say, like 500 capsules will turn, and they'll go to the next one, and then to the next one, and to the next one. They'll go down, and they'll turn back, and they'll come back around right to her, or him, or whoever's here, and then she'll put them onto these drying trays. So now they're set. So, and then they'll shrink over time, about 24 hours typically for liquids, and then for paste, you're talking about sometimes 48 hours to be able to get it dry to the right size. And constantly they're testing it. So then you'll see quality come in and grab these finished capsules, and what do they do with it? They go test it again. So we tested it before, tested it there, testing it again. We've got to make sure everything is consistent. Anything's not right, then we have to stop, and everything gets put on hold.
What's a product that would have a paste?
What's that?
What's one of the products that
Meta.
would use a paste? Meta. That's what I was guessing. Okay.
Yeah. So Omega is like Marine Omega, Optimum Omega. Those are the simplest products.
Because it's just liquid.
It's just a liquid. It drops right in. The pastes are the most important or most difficult, I should say, because they are so hard. Because you have little granules, even though they're small, they're little granules, and they'll get stuck in seams and those types of things. And to transform, they don't want to naturally just flow. You have to kind of help them flow into the process. So,
That sounds super cool.
And what's the testing ratio? Is it like one tray from each bin, or how does that typically work?
yeah, well, they have an AQL process. Eddie, you want to take it through that?
Okay, so the AQL process all is more statistics. So we're taking samples throughout the entire run based on the batch size to get a good representative sample so we can test. So we call it AQLs, process checks. Any questions on that?
There's a mil-spec 105E is what we call it. And it's a mil-spec 105E, and it's a testing system. So basically, they've done this, Deming has done this for many, 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 many years from a quality-based system, and shows a very good amount of material. So you check at the bottom, the middle, the top, everything is tested. And you know across the board whether everything's consistent.
And that's why the criticality, right, for the uniformity from the very beginning, we take great care to make sure that everything that's from all the actives within that soft gel there, and we just take that representative sample throughout the batch.
If we're looking at the nutritional market, what percent of nutritionals go through this type of check?
He wasn't here for the first question. Here's my answer to you. The products that you take from New Skin do.
There you go.
He knew he was on video.
He said the product.
So this is a general warehouse. This is kind of a cool warehouse. We can get this down to 50 degrees if we need to. This is really important because there's certain ingredients that you want to keep at a lower temperature so they don't heat up and they don't have any challenges. And so we have this really nice, we have a massive refrigeration unit upstairs that basically cools this down and makes sure that we can have things in a proper fashion. So it's really unique because a lot of companies, they basically just have a big old warehouse. They don't care the temperature is what the temperature is, and then they do with it what they will. But you don't want anything. If you have a phospholipid, or if you have constant acid, which is what basically you have in Optimum Omega, and that thing starts to get to a hot temperature that's not friendly. So if you talk about the middle of the summer, and it's up in the 90 degrees, and you don't have controls like this for temperature, you're in trouble. And you can say, well, I don't care. Well, it will at some point in time actually change and degrade. So we want to make sure to keep everything that needs to be cool, and the things that are room temperature, we put them over on the other side. Again, back to the little things that we do. Most places won't do this, but we have inside insulation of all the walls. This is all insulated to make sure that we maintain the coolness and we don't have to spend so much money on heating the cold. So little things like that. You'll also see all these things have barcodes. Why is that important? Because we have to have a staging process where we know everything is. I want to know where every single ingredient is and how much of it that we have. So every time we do it, someone takes it from the rack, they actually document it, they scan it, and then it goes into the system so we can account for every single milligram that we use. There's some ingredients that are anywhere from $800 up to $1,600 a kilo of material. So you got to get everything very, very crystal clear on where you are.
Thank you. Thank you for being here on a Saturday. These guys showed up to work on Saturday for us, just anybody that's watching live. They didn't have to come to work today, but they did.
So this is what we call our general room temperature environment. So we got the insulation that goes around the inside and so forth. But we're able to keep all the product that we can change the room temperature. So we've got bottles, those types of things. These types of things we can actually put inside. That's there, that's room temperature, right out there. You see keep everything clean and free. So you have any potential for risk, for exposure, for safety. It's really important to us. It's fun because, he's been one of the first things that Rich Wood did in the building. He says, how do you treat your employees? The first thing he said, how do you treat your employees? Show me what you care about. If he wanted to know how he worked with the employees, whether they cared about what they were doing, whether it meant something what they were doing here, or whether they were just punching the clock. If they're punching the clock, then they hit the clock. And he wasn't rude or previous or negative. I think he was. Anyway, how do you treat the product? How do you look at scrap? How do you look at safety? How do you make sure nobody can get hurt so they just fall off the rack and they go to the proper adequate repair? He wasn't talking about the money, but he was talking all about the people, safety, so
Nice.
This room, you know those trays. So I'll have you guys take a look at this real fast. You know those trays that you guys saw here? They go into these drying rooms right here. And so what happens is each one of those is given a barometric pressure gauge. And so we know exactly the temperature and the humidity that's in there. And they have to be gently dry. They have to be cured, basically. Once they're done cured and they're completed, then we have all these allergen statements. You see on the long side here? If anything has an allergen, we have to mark it and make sure it's explicit on there because we want to make sure everybody's safe, right? Once it's marked and allocated, then we take it over here to the sorting station. This is a big difference than what you see in majority of facilities. The majority of facilities, the soft gel facility, the sorting process looks like this. A person hunched over on a table, looking at the soft gels going, that one doesn't look quite right. That one doesn't look quite right. Literally. And they've done studies by the beginning of the shift, by the end of the shift, the level of ability to screen those good and bad parts drops to 20%.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
So, what did we do to eliminate that? It wasn't just we want to eliminate people, but we want to get really crystal clear on making sure we do it right. So this machine right here, we put all the soft gels through it. It has a camera that measures it and does 6,000 pictures per second.
Wow.
It's put on a grid, and so it basically has the soft gel comes through, 6,000 pictures are taken in every different weight, look, appearance, so forth like that, and it knows exactly which one. It'll go to a coordinate, say X, 5, Y, 17, kick it out. And then it'll kick it out on this back end, and you actually have those pulled out every single time. So you're not worried about somebody being tired at the end of the shift, missing something, or not doing it right. It's 100% inspected through this system. This is what the pharmaceutical companies have been using for a long time. Nutritional companies are just now realizing how important this is. Eddie has been using these since he started. So this is again back to Eddie and his amazing quality processes of what he built and put into the system to make sure that we're doing it right. We love people, but we just can't necessarily trust that after 8 hours of work, they're going to be.
See, how many manufacturing facilities facilities are you overseeing for all the new skin products? 'Cause I know there's another one up in Craigburn. I know how many do you have toothpaste facilities? You have how many total?
So we have globally responsibility for about 7 main manufacturing facilities, including China and some in Southeast Asia and so forth, obviously here in the United States. And then there's separate groups that we work with closely, and they're our partners, and they have to be a certain rigor. We have an AQSCIS process that we actually take them through to make sure that they actually qualify to be a supplier for new skin. Most suppliers don't qualify. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
But people want to.
Yeah.
So, anyways, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
Yes.
What percentage of
Well, yeah. So
What was the-
the situation is a completely separate business, separate business unit. So I can answer. You can probably ask, I guess, whoever else, maybe Justin or Bob, that sort of thing. But predominantly speaking, though, we look at we call it now CEA, Controlled Environment Agriculture, and so it's got to separate the issues. And we look for both, whether it comes from a controlled environment agriculture. That's the key for us to make sure that we maintain sustainability. So now we've got it encapsulated, put the ribbon around it, we put the juice inside, right? And we've inspected it, now it's right, it's been approved, it's done by Tech 5, and now it comes over the bottom. So watch yourself here. Don't get hit by the pallets right here. So this is the back end. Anybody know what this product is?
Looks like Vitality.
Close.
Is it fit or control? Yeah.
You guys got it. So this is our TR90. And this is what
Fit or
happens.
control, TR90.
That process. Grab them, but I don't have gloves, so I won't do it. But just to give you some perspective, this line was designed so that the person on the inside, we took it basically the average person is roughly about 5'4". I'm not kidding, we went through this whole process. We went down to 5'2". We wanted to make sure the person, it only took them 5 steps to move from one side of the room to the other side of the room. Oh my God. So that you can control everything. So you can control one, this is the amount of people you want, and you can manage the quality. And it's simple. So we basically, how many steps will it take? It's 5 here, 5 back, and so forth, so you should be able to finish that. We set it all ergonomically. Now again, what I talked about with the laminar airflow still applies to all packaging too. Everything's from the top, comes from the top, and then it shoots down to the bottom, only flows down. We never bring it back up. So whatever's on the ground stays. Okay? Now what is it up here? We don't have this heater inside here heating up the room out here. So you can heater out here. It's already controlled, it has a safety seal on it. And now there's the conduction seal, as well as the compression seal. The heat gun, it goes on, and they actually put it to the back. Which, just to give you an idea, in the soft gels, we make anywhere from 500,000 to 5 million soft gels a day.
Oh.
And on the bottom line, we do anywhere from 20,000 up to 70,000 bottles a day. So, it's kind of fun.
All right, we know our time is up, Steve. This is amazing. Almost done. Let's follow Steve.
Oh, sorry, Russ.
This is a secondary warehouse for finished goods. Gets us a lot of extra space that we can go out throughout there for sampling booths and so forth, and all outbound shipping through here. All the data, all shipments inbound and outbound come right through here. So this is kind of mission control center for all the processes, ingredients, and so forth. And then we also use, and Eddie, would you explain to them the importance of having
Snuggle up. Let everybody snuggle up here because I don't want Eddie to work too hard. Yeah. We'll jump in here.
the importance of how we do our initial sampling and HEPA filtration and why we use the hoods and so forth.
Right, so whenever you take any kind of sample, like they'll open up the raw material. They're like, okay, hey, you don't want to have it in the dirty environment. When you look at our sampling, ours is a class 10,000. Regular blue, clean air is 100,000. So if we go to the extreme, right, 10 times more, to make sure that that sample is exposed to the environment, it is safe, it's not cross-contaminated, make sure that we have a sample that we can test, and suggest that we run a sample from a heat perspective, from my perspective, and we're not cross-contaminated, so we can bring care of it.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
We have
HEPA filtration, some people might have one or none in these sample booths or rooms. We have 5 to get us to that standard that we need to.
You can't have any possibility of cross-contamination because if you have allergens or anything like that, you have to make sure you things separate. It's these little things, and somebody says, well, new skin, what's different? I'm telling you, I've given you about 100. Today, and hopefully you guys have heard, because there's so many people who build these products. Most people don't even know, haven't ever visited the manufacturer that's actually doing the products. New Skin owns the manufacturers that do the products.
So if you guys can imagine, after going through this and all the quality control and 5 extra of this and 10,000 extra of that, and the first time I heard about Meta, and I told Steve in front of the board there, the group, that it should be $49.95, he just about fell out of his chair.
Well, I don't know if you guys know, so I'll tell you something that I don't think that's a lot of people know. You guys need to watch Bill now. I'm on camera, so I don't know how many people know.
It's a private group.
I don't know if you guys know this, but the scientific community was so impressed with what we did with Meta, and specifically as we segmented out. Anthocyanins are a big classification. There's lots of anthocyanins. I don't know if you know this or not, but we actually isolated a unique anthocyanin that's only unique to New Skin and what we put into our products and how we do it. And then the Science Council, this is a global group, independent of any business, and there's actual inside of there, it's called New Skin. It's actual. So if anybody wants to try to use that anthocyanin, they have to use our technology that Mark and Joe and the team actually put together. And so that's that. And it's not just the specific type, it's the ratio, it's everything that comes together to make sure you fractionate it out properly. Anybody can take an extract of bilberry, blueberry, mushroom. That's simple. That's not hard. What's hard is to get those 3 very specific anthocyanins fractionated properly in the right ratio to deliver the results we see about it. So it's a whole different ballgame. So you're not just buying a bunch of blue stuff, you're buying some serious science. So it's pretty cool.
$49.95, Steve. Come on, Eddie, get in here. Let's take a quick photo with Eddie and Steve, everybody. Let's get Patrick back to take our photo. Patrick.
All the shorties in the front.
I'll hold that for this one.
Yeah, we need
You and I can go together.
Patrick is head of HR for us.
Yes, Patrick.
Hi, Patrick. Thank you for being here.
Everyone say Patrick.
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 A little bit closer. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Awesome.
There we go. He's got a promotion.
This car's a little loud. You guys, I'll tell you what we're going to go see what they had to truck us through, but this is where you get encapsulation for 2 consortium capsules. So tea green, quarterbacks, all those types of products. That's what's made right here. Life Pack, all those types of capsules right here. So what happens is the capsule comes in the chute, it separates, swings around, powder gets put in, and then it swings around again, gets encapsulated, dropped down, goes through a polisher station, goes through a waste step, and it validates, and it goes into the actual capsule. And then, of course, what we do is so inspected, everything's inspected, everything's right. So that's what this is. A little bit loud, so just make sure you know what to
Thank you. We'll be quiet. You guys, I'll post this on the Dan McCormick team page.
Thank you.
sugar cookies.
Ooh, cool.
This is a GAF 1500 Well, I'm just grateful that we have the opportunity to work with you guys. You do really good, and you guys do some good. We're great team together. So this is a 2-piece hard shell machine that I was talking about earlier. We can do anywhere from roughly about 300,000 up to 1 million capsules in a shift. That's where you see the up and down coming up. That's the powder going in over here. That's the capsule going here. All the stuff enclosed in there is safe. It's clean. Everything is consistent across the board. Our scrap rate is less than 0.25% of the powder. 0.25%. 0.25 of 1%. And Eddie's working on it. This one machine right here, just like that, it's real fast, you guys know. So this is a V blender we go fast. Now this V blender is very, very important to understand. If you saw it was transparent, it's going to look like this. It's going to transform. The reason it does that is with the focus that they put in physics where the blend kind of goes in like that. Because when you have such a small amount, I'll put in like 1 kilo of a micronutrient and I'll put 200 kilos of a macronutrient in one blender. Now, if you're baking at home, but how do you make sure that you get it properly continuously blended? So what this group did that built this e-blenders is they made translucent, they did red, green, blue beads, and they dropped them in at different levels. And they want to make sure they get it. You can actually see it comes in, and at a certain point in time, depending on the ingredients, the hygroscopic nature, whether it wants to suck moisture, how dense it is, and the number of ingredients. Eddie has a specific time frame. It's blended for 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Because you have to get this. What happens, it'll become completely homogeneous. If you keep spinning it, heat friction will start to pull it because everything's just going out again. So you have to catch it at one specific time. So that's what Eddie's great. It's amazing what he's done. So.
Heard you say thank you.
Nice to meet you. You got to make sure that you're going to get the concerns and the frustrations and so forth. It's so critical. One thing I wanted to mention real fast, so you guys have some perspective on a couple of things. During COVID, it was really, really difficult to get raw ingredients in. Really difficult to get raw ingredients in. As you know, factories were shutting down because people had COVID and that sort of thing, and we had to do the same thing. And if one person gets COVID, you know, that entire line goes down because you can't potentially risk anything coming out of the facility and then obviously exposing other people. What's interesting is that we had a global, I don't know if you guys have seen this presentation I've given, but we had a global system that showed every single supplier in the entire world. We knew where every single raw ingredient was coming from. We knew where it was on a vessel, on a plane, on a train, on a whatever. We knew where everything was. And then we made a deal with all of our suppliers. And we basically said, you have to be clear. Just be honest and tell us where you're at. We understand the situation with COVID. And this is the coolest thing ever, is I can tell you honestly, the suppliers that came to the table during COVID had to rank order their customers. Everybody had to, right? They had to figure it out. So they basically said, no, you guys are number one. And they said, what we have. We're only 30% of where we were before, but we can cover your orders, and they kept us going consistently, whatever they could go. It was a big deal. It was because of how, and I want to make sure it's clear, it's because how Blake, Steve, Sandy, Ryan, Rich, Truman, it's how they treat people. You don't just push a supplier and say, get it done, and hurry up, and lowest price, and all this stuff. No, we focus on price. We want to make sure quality's good, and all that stuff. But we can't treat people that are providing us the ingredients and the products that we want badly. And so what's happened is we were elevated to that role, and that's why we were able to stay, believe it or not, we were able to stay between 97.3 and 98.4% availability on every product. It was incredible. So thanks to those wonderful suppliers. So it's a big, big deal. And so we're so grateful that we have this wonderful ecosystem of suppliers around the world that work with us and work with Nu Skin, and they have such a good reputation. This is our creation room. So this is fun. This is where the mad scientist goes in and starts coming up with meta and stuff like that, and starts looking at different ways. This is a little mini encapsulation machine. Isn't it cute? It's a little baby machine that kind of basically can replicate. It's a 6-to-1 ratio from here to here to the manufacturing floor. But we can actually try and find out whether the materials will flow properly, whether they'll seal properly, whether they'll actually fit inside the capsule, whether there's any problems. And we do all this work beforehand before it ever gets over here to the manufacturing floor. Almost no companies have this type of thing. They just say, well, theoretically it should fit, let's send it out to the floor. Now, there are some, but there are very few, who actually do that level of detail. So the stuff we're working on for 2026 is right here.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
Right here, right now. Right? And so we won't go into what it is. Yeah. 2026.
Any identifying
It's in
feature?
this room right now. I mean, we have to be working that far ahead because we have to get our clinicals done, which take a long time to get the clinicals done. It takes a lot of time for the stability work to be done. A lot of the things that we do, we're doing years and years and years ahead. A lot of companies will just throw something together and get it out, off it goes. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not trying to criticize anybody else. I'm just saying this is how we do our business. This is how we run. So this is our prep work and our initial, what we call pilot lab. And then we also have over here, this is our analytical lab and microbial lab. So back to those tests that we kept talking about and all these different tests. This is where we're doing tests. We also, you guys have seen the labs over at Nu Skin. We do testing there. Funny thing is, even though we're in the supply group, they'll test us again. So they'll test Elevate stuff, even though right here, this is an FTIR to make sure the testing is correct. That's the fingerprint test to make sure the ingredient's right. Then you have HPLC, you have microbial that we do here so we can be able to make sure that the product is safe, no pathogenic products. And then this is disintegration to make sure that for a soft gel, it disintegrates properly in the right amount of time inside somebody's digestion system and so forth. It's surprising how many people will throw out a product, whether it's in a tablet or or they actually don't do the check to make sure that it actually disintegrates properly and flows out into the body. And so dissolution testing, disintegration testing, microbiology testing, identity testing, it's all done here. And then our friends over in our other building actually double check us again and make sure we're okay. So tell them around. And then we go to 3 if we need to. So no, we never run this. Oh, you were here, that's right. We're just doing this because we're just. Thank you so much for having me. So when I built this company back in 2015, I wanted it to be something that was important where people felt like we're all together, even though we're in offices and sometimes you have to have private conversations and that sort of thing. But you'll see, in many cases, you see family pictures up on the walls of people's family and so forth like that. What are they working for? Why are they here? What's important to them? And those types of things. What's interesting is we can see each other, signal each other, and so forth. So what happens a lot of times is Eddie and his team, every single morning, they'll come in, they'll do a huddle. Eddie, you want to take me through the huddle?
Yeah, so real quick, so when we talk about lean and lean processes and systems, our huddle basically is aligned with overall capacity, so demand versus capacity, to make sure that yes, we have good flow for the organization, right, especially in production. Because we're selling line time, ultimately, so the huddle gets us aligned every single day to make sure if there's any kind of issues that we might have, we're aligned, do we have any kind of countermeasures for it too, so we get a max production flow every single day.
It's really, really important because once you have to know where everybody is, what are we running, what's coming through the system, what the expectations are, what we're supposed to do, accountability, right? We've talked about it so many times. If you know exactly what's supposed to be the output here and where we need help, and potentially somebody didn't come in today, how are we gonna backfill for that person and so forth. We had a problem with the raw material, it didn't pass testing, we had to ship it back, what are we gonna change in the schedule to address it and so forth. All that's figured out in about 10 minutes in the very beginning of the morning. He likes to do it at 6, some people.
They don't like to get up that early. We need to be
Introduce them to the miracle morning.
That's right. That's right. But that's really, we wanted a cohesive group that really was connected and that they felt they were, even though there is, glass here, they can feel like they're unified. And that's how we look at Nu Skin as a business and so forth. So this is an extension of Nu Skin. This is who we are. This is what we do. And that's pretty much this facility. Obviously, we have powders and creams and lotions and all the other stuff up in our drinking facility. Maybe sometime we'll have a chance to go.
Is collagen made up there?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. What's fun about
Because
collagen?
Mark Lawrence, he said, "Are you going to this facility?" I want to do that.
What's so funny about collagen? Oh, yeah.
I have a question. Why are the ingredients not on collagen package?
Well, because they're not for resale. Like the individual one wasn't for resale and so forth. So they want to sell it as a package. So they put it on the package itself. That's how they set it up originally.
The box itself.
Right, the box. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how they set
By
it
law,
up.
they
So
have
it
to.
wasn't for the individual.
Because when it's, you're giving out a few samples, which I have, I said, well, I don't know about this because there's no ingredients.
I think it's a great point. We could potentially put it on there. We could do an individual sale. I'll have to talk to again market presidents. Those guys are rough and tumble.
You have to put little magnifying glasses in each one.
It's true.
You just do a QR code.
Yeah, you can do a QR code. That's a great idea. And you can look at, like, have you seen the T-Green? Have you seen how T-Green has a QR code? And you can click right on there. We're now, every single product, as we're slowly getting through our inventory, we're now putting QR codes on everything so you can see it. That's drive into this whole strategy right with Empower Me that you guys are going to see coming. It's going to be building, so it's going to be really cool. Right before you said that, collagen. Here's the funny thing on collagen. And I know you guys ready to go because Dan's the person who stays on time. So
I just didn't want to make you late for your next
Are
meeting.
you kidding me? I couldn't be anywhere else. I'd rather be. And this is so fun to hang out with you guys. Thanks for taking the time and actually showing me interest in what you're doing. And then you can go home, hopefully feel a little bit more confident about what we're doing here, how much we care. But so collagen is kind of crazy. So COVID hits, and Brian and I are talking about collagen, and we want to do a collagen product, and we want to do something different. We've done powders a ton of times before. We've done these powders. That's great. There's powders to be done and so forth. But we wanted it ready to drink because we wanted something easy so we could send it over to somebody else. You don't have to stir it up in water. You don't have to do all that sort of stuff. You can share it, friends, family, all that sort of stuff in a simple way. It tastes good, right? Well, it just so happens I knew a group that was located up in North Salt Lake that does the best in terms of liquid packages in the business. And so, while everybody else in the middle of COVID, we went in, I sat down with their team, and Ryan and I, and Mark Lawrence, and so forth, and we decided to buy that company because they met all the criteria. We bought the company, and that company has made every single liquid collagen, and it's our #1 product globally. #1. And the U.S. product is the #1 SKU. So, I mean, in terms of the total global sales and so forth, and this is the most important thing, it also is the highest repeat index because of subscription, because people are staying consistently on it, they don't fall off and so forth. And by the way, for those of you who like Scanner,
Yes.
that it obviously has a Scanner score impact too. So, SES score, consumable, delicious, and easy to use, and that's what we think made it really successful. But that was all during the middle of COVID that we did that, and it was kind of crazy. And that's how we were able to get it out and move.
And the crazy thing, when you came on my show, Mastermind Training, and we said beauty collagen focus, and Joe Chang didn't want it to be called collagen.
He didn't.
I loved it when you told that story.
He did. Well, Joe was so upset. I mean, Joe calls me his ugly work wife. He sits in this one side of the office, and I sit on the other side of the office, and then we come and go to head and stuff like that. And I'm trying to make it, he's trying to create all this sort of stuff. So we always kind of get in each other's face. I love Joe. He's one of my favorite people in the world. Amazing man. But he goes, why are you taking this beautiful thing that I created that it takes all this unique phytoceramides and specific levels across, and this collagen, this isn't just collagen, this is biopeptide collagen, and you talk about the ratio and the formulas, you're going to call it collagen? That's what you're going to really call it? I said, well, Joe, people have to know what it is. He goes, they'll know what it is. You're just gonna miss that. I said, no, Joe. I said, we got to appeal to the masses. everybody who knows what collagen is, but then we can tell the science story with the plus. So it's all about the plus, and we understand the ratio and so forth, and that's the difference. And so he stormed back into his office, and so forth, and he said, okay, whatever, that sort of thing, but it is different. I mean, the ratio, what's funny is how many people have tried now to replicate what we're doing, but like you go into, stores, you go into stores, stuff like that, it's not the ingredients per se that these companies are doing that's bad. It's again, it goes back to ratios, and people don't understand. There's certain uptake ratios. People don't understand selenium versus vitamin E, vitamin D versus, and when you talk about these phytoceramides and the ratio versus the collagen, there's a certain ratio where you tip the point where the amount that will actually go into the body for dissolution is different. And so that's what Joe is, and his team, Helen, everybody, are so good at, is figuring out the right ratio. So it's not just about throwing a whole bunch of stuff in a capsule or into a potion, it's getting the right ratio. So that's what makes it unique. So anyway, so thanks for asking.
Is the ratio not the 2 kilodalton? I always thought it was the 2 kilodalton that would fit the receptor.
It is. It's that is one point. But then you have another point of ratio, and then you have another point of combination. So you have to be able to have all of
it's a
those.
matrix.
Absolutely. You can't just look at it one-dimensionally. Yes, it is the most bioavailable form of collagen because of what you just said.
Yeah.
Great, perfect, that's one thing. But I also want to have phytoceramide so I can have skin benefit outside of just the collagen restoration that goes inside of there. The ceramides help moisturize the skin. And we have to have the carotenoids in there to protect the skin, to make sure from rays and that sort of thing. So we're protecting, we're hydrating, and we're generating collagen. That's the key. And most people go, oh, biopeptides and collagen, and they get this certain level of size and so forth. Yeah, that's